What's the best dynasty legacy in Crusader Kings 3? This one's pretty tricky, as I think overall the dynasty legacies are actually pretty balanced. That being said, I think there are some ones that in most cases you'll want to avoid, so let's take a look. Up first, we have Warfare in B tier. The bonuses from this legacy mainly serve to make combat just slightly better in many instances, with its tier 5 legacy of an additional man-at-arms being quite amazing. Overall, a very solid choice. Next up, we have Law, which goes into B tier as well. The legacy tree associated with the stewardship lifestyle. I'd say this legacy is also pretty good, with its last two slots being the best. Additional gold and levies from your powerful vassals will both make them weaker and you stronger, which is pretty nice. And an additional domain limit is of course also amazing. If you're planning on being a tribal government for a long time though, I wouldn't recommend this one, as a tribal you won't have that high income to begin with and not a lot of buildings anyway. On to Guile, which goes into C tier. Now depending on how much of an intrigue fan you are, you might protest this ranking. I put it one lower primarily because its first and final ranking are quite reliant on dread to be effective. However, if you are maimed or very old, your dread will plummet rapidly, unless you have the forever infamous perk. Additionally, I think there are some scenarios where having bonus gold or bonus troops are just a lot stronger than being able to execute schemes successfully. If you're facing 5 revolts at the same time, no amount of intrigue is going to get you out of that. Otherwise though, a very lovely legacy. Now we have Blood, which goes straight to A tier. In CK3, the genetic traits can be extremely overpowered if you handle things correctly. Do some Dune-style Bene Gesserit crossing of the bloodlines, and within a bit of time you'll have heirs that are genius, Herculean, and beautiful. At that point it's kind of like playing the game on easy mode. I wouldn't rank this legacy as S tier though, as it still takes quite a bit of time and micromanaging in order to get things to be incredibly overpowered. Now onto Customs, which goes into D tier. This legacy is all about increasing cultural acceptance between you and other vassals of your realm. I put it in D tier because in most cases this won't be extremely useful, but there is an exception to this. If you're going for a playstyle where you're trying to hybridize your culture as much as possible in order to collect the most overpowered men-at-arms on the map, this can be incredibly useful. Assemble an army of Norse Varangian veterans and Indian war elephants, maybe even some Byzantine cataphracti. Under that playstyle, this legacy could be immensely powerful, but in your day-to-day game it probably won't help you so much. To Erudition, which goes into A tier. I put Erudition here because I'm quite biased to tall gameplay, and Erudition is all about playing tall. Plus 20% development growth and plus 10% lifestyle experience for the learning tree are pretty neat. Its final legacy, the one that boosts your counselors, will definitely help with the increased county development decision. Plus 30% piety from pilgrimages is also nice. Admittedly, some of the rest of the legacies here are a bit lackluster. But I think that's true of basically all the legacies. Next up is Glory, in B tier. I placed this legacy in B tier for mainly two of its legacies. One of them, Renowned Name, gives you an additional accolade, which can be a pretty big bonus. The fourth one, Assertive Rulers, gives you negative 25% short reign duration, and makes vassals less likely to join Claimant and Liberty factions, which can be pretty great. In my experience, most CK3 games, or at least feudal ones, eventually get to a point where the only danger is upon succession. Now to Kin, which goes to A tier. I actually place Kin in A tier because of just one legacy, its fifth one, Graceful Aging. Whereas typically aging is just a very bad thing in Crusader Kings 3, this legacy flips that on its head. Characters in your dynasty will begin to amass instead of lose skill points as they age, and their prowess won't be affected. This is incredible, especially if you've got something like an elective succession or an administrative government. Because in such succession types it's typically the oldest and most prestigious people who inherit the throne, this legacy guarantees that you'll always have amazing heirs. Additionally, you may be aware, but there's a couple little tricks you can use in CK3 to basically make your character immortal. Combine that with Graceful Aging and you basically become invulnerable. So yeah, it's pretty neat. Now to Activities, which goes into C tier. While this legacy has some pretty big bonuses to traveler experience, I'm not sure it's the most powerful when compared with some of the other ones. It should be noted though that if you're going for the AEIOU achievement, then this legacy is basically a necessity, as its first tier gives you a boost to getting a strong hook on your liege, which is essential for the achievement. Now to Heroic Bloodline, which goes into B tier. This bloodline can be pretty powerful, especially because it can make any claims gotten through legends be dynastic claims that are passed on to your children. While legends and legend buildings offer many bonuses that can help you on your way, the downside to them is that they are incredibly expensive, even with the discount offered by this legacy. If you're already running an empire, you probably won't feel the financial burden, but if you're just a king or a duke, this legacy might be best avoided as it needs a constant flow of cash in order to get its bonuses. Time for legitimacy, which goes into B tier. Past a point in CK3, the biggest threats to your realm will be internal factions within the Empire. What legitimacy does through the lasting line and divine mandate modifiers is make it less likely for these factions to exist or to try to overthrow you. Taking this legacy means that you basically won't have to worry about the legitimacy mechanic ever again. Next, adventure goes into E tier. Frankly, the bonuses gained from this one are just rather mediocre. They buff some of the Vikings' most rather useless trait. The bonuses increase diplomatic range, seduce scheme success chance, and army movement speed. Really, you could do without these bonuses. Its last legacy may seem to be incredibly strong, but upon closer look it's actually not that good. Each of your friends gives you +3 vassal opinion, +2 popular opinion, and +1% vassal tax. But this bonus is limited to up to 5 friends. You don't need any of this. The only time I could see this being useful is if you were doing a world tour as Count Hastine, in which case the +30% diplomatic range would help you go places that are farther, faster. But that's still just the first legacy that you would want. The Adventure Legacy stands in stark contrast to the Pillage Legacy, which goes into S tier. This entire legacy just makes the incredibly overpowered Vikings just even stronger. More prestige from winning battles to fuel your prestige-based tribal army. More loot capacity and Varangian veterans. More gold from ransoms, and prestige from kidnapping. Gain gold from winning battles. Bonus siege progress. And if that weren't enough, this legacy gives you access to raids while in the feudal era, provided that you're a duke or a count. While only Vikings can take this legacy, it's just extremely well suited to them. A legacy that makes an already overpowered thing even more overpowered. Next, Metropolitan goes into C tier. This legacy is all about boosting your cities and has some pretty strong bonuses. The reason I put it into C tier instead of B tier, however, is because its final legacy, Flourishing Cities, is rather mediocre. One additional building slot is not that strong compared to some of the other bonuses we've seen. You can get an extra building slot by just being a lunatic. Though perhaps one day on some distant blue moon when Paradox adds Republics, this will be a strong legacy. Now for Coterie, which goes into D tier. While this legacy has some bonuses that I think could be quite strong given the right circumstances, its fault is that it assumes that you're already in a position where all your powerful vassals are house members, and if you've micromanaged and controlled the realm enough that all your powerful vassals are house members, you're probably in a position of strength where you don't need this legacy. I do think many of these abilities would be pretty fun though after you've already got sort of hegemonic control over the empire. Having house members be able to be employed without a salary means that you can have all court positions occupied all the time, which seems kinda neat. Perhaps my ranking here is a bit harsh, I just think that there'd be other legacies that would better serve you if you were in a position of weakness. Next, Brilliance goes into B tier. Associated with the clan government, this legacy is excellent, with bonus tax jurisdictions, stewardship lifestyle experience, and tax contributions. Everything in this legacy is designed to help you make a lot of money and keep control over your vassals. Bonus marriage acceptance and hostile scheme success chance against dynasty members means that you'll have a much easier time keeping control of a very large clan empire. The difference between this legacy and Coterie is that this one is strong even if you don't have complete control over the empire. These bonuses will be rather helpful regardless of if your vassals are your family members. The one downside to this tree is that its final tier 5 legacy, Splendor Reborn, is in many cases not worth it, as it's a lot of gold to boost capital development, more so than you'll probably earn back. Next is Bureaucracy, which goes into A tier. Associated with the administrative government type, the main reason that I put this legacy in A tier is because of its final tier 5 bonus. Okay, I can't pronounce that, but basically what it does is that it means people are less likely to do claimant factions or depose schemes. This is kind of game changing, as in my playthroughs what it's basically meant is that control of Byzantium was just never in question again. In my opinion, administrative realms scale up really well, as you can just get tons of new kingdoms into the empire, and it won't really affect your stability, as you have the state religion and a bunch of other factors going on, such as the ability to just depose at will vassals you don't like if you have enough influence. If you become Byzantine emperor and your dynasty has this legacy, there's a very, very low chance that you'll ever lose the empire. Though perhaps this is simply my bias for Byzantium talking. After all, legitimacy does the same thing, except it's more suited to feudal governments. Feel free to comment below whether you agree with my Byzantine bias, or if I'm just, romantic for Rome. Taking a look at our rankings, it seems that pillage is the only option we have in S tier. Thus, I must declare pillage the best. Not because it's the best legacy in all situations always, but because it makes the incredibly overpowered Vikings even more overpowered. Like and subscribe, the North stay winning, and have a nice day.